Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to connect to your database, your MySQL database, using PDO. Okay, so what you need to do first is to have a database. So in order to do that, open your browser and download a software called XAMPP, or you can try MAMP or WAMP. So that's entirely up to you depending on your system, but XAMPP is universal, so you can download that one. So install XAMPP, and once you are done, make sure you install to drive C. That's the default. When you are done, open the control panel, launch Apache and MySQL, click there to start them here, click there. Okay, so once Apache and MySQL are running on your system, we are good to go. So let's see how we can create a connection. So open your browser, your web browser, and type localhost/phpMyAdmin, and you get to something that looks like this. So this is where you design your databases from. So to begin, let's click on New Database because we have to create a database that we will connect to. So I'll just call this one PDO_DB. You can call your database anything, just don't put spaces there. So create. Now we have a database. So in the database, we need a table. So let's create a table. Now we're going to name this table users, like this, and hit go. So in order to be able to read any contents of our table, we need a primary key in order to be able to manipulate them. So we'll put one called ID, and then we'll put the name of our users, and then we'll put email, and you may want to put password, and finally you might want to put date, but we didn't add enough columns, so all you need to do is click go here to add one. I'll click there, and we can add the date. So for the date, the data type for our date is going to be date time. Unsurprisingly, this one will be variable character with a length of 100. Email is going to be variable character as well, 100. Name, variable character, 20 characters should be enough. And then the important part is to make sure that the ID is the primary key, and you select auto increment and primary key there. And let's hit save. Alrighty then. So now we have a database here, which we can use to read and write stuff. Now we may be using the name and the email to search for our user, and the date as well. So put index on all of these in case you'll be doing that. It's not required, but you can do it. So let's click index here and add. Do the same for each column except the password. The date as well. Okay, so now we have indices here, but this one is the only primary key. So we're done. Now we can go to the browse button and then add some records. So let's just click insert here. But instead of inserting data directly here, let's do it using PDO because that's the subject of the matter. So I'm going to open a new page here, and I'll navigate to localhost/OOP. Oh, sorry, not OOP, PDO, sorry, and /enter. So it's going to tell me not found, obviously. So what you do is you go to your htdocs folder. This folder is inside C XAMPP htdocs. Now, if you installed XAMPP somewhere else, you have to find that folder. But in my case, I installed in drive C, so it's going to be C XAMPP htdocs. Inside here, this is where you put all your websites. So create a new folder and name it PDO here. Once you are done, click and drag it to a text editor like Sublime Text, which I'm using here. Now, if your text editor doesn't click and drag content like this for you to see them here, it's okay. You just have to create a file, save it in the same folder. The reason I've just dragged this here is to just make it easier to create files. But otherwise, you can create files directly in the directory, no problem. So let's create a new file here. Sublime Text, by the way, is free. You can download it. It has a free version, but you can pay if you appreciate the software, of course. So in here, we want to create a PHP file that we will use to load the connection. So we'll call this file index.php and hit save. So let's save there. It will save in PDO. And then let's put our PHP tags like so. So connecting to a database using PDO is very simple. So now the things to keep in mind are these. First of all, when you installed your PHP or your MySQL, you may have been asked to add a password. So if you did add the password and the username, those are the username and password you will use to connect to your database. But if you didn't add a username and password like me, then you're going to use the default ones. And the default names are root, that's the name, and the password is empty. So some empty strings like that. Okay, so let's make a string that we're going to use as the connection string. So I'm going to call this string like this. And this is how you connect using PDO. First of all, you must define the driver. So the driver is called MySQL because that's what we are using to connect. And once you write the driver name, put a full colon and then give it the host name. Now, since we are on a local server here, this is why we are typing localhost there. This is our server name, so say localhost. Now, if you're connecting to a database that is online, you will type the host name there. That's the address of the host name. Usually it may be, I don't know, host.something.something. But the provider, the people you're hosting with will have that information in the control panel, so you can see it. It will tell you what the host name is. So if you want, you can put 127.0.11. That's similar to localhost, but it's the same with if you're on an online host, it may have the IP address, so you can use that as well. But let's type localhost here for us. And then what we do now, once we are done with localhost, in fact, before we type that, we have to write host is equal to like that, so it knows what we're talking about. And then the separator between the two is a semicolon. So remember, this is a full colon, this is a semicolon here, and once you have the semicolon, you give it the database name. So you say db name is equal to, and you give it the name of the DB. Now it's very possible to run this without adding the DB there. It's going to work still more. The only thing is you have to define your DB afterwards. So let's say DB name is equal to, and we named our DB PDO underscore DB like that. And that's it. That's the string. Okay. And now let's create a new PDO object. So PDO is equal to new PDO. Now the question stands, why are we using PDO to connect? Well, normally people use MySQL connect like that, which is also fine, no problem with that. The advantage of using PDO is that you can change the driver. This is why we're putting the driver here. So it's possible to use PDO and use SQLite like this and make a different connection. So it simply gives you a universal way of connecting to different database types. Okay, so that's the reason there. So let's add our string here and just put it string like so, and then let's put a comma here. So the first parameter for PDO is the connection string, and then we put in our user. Now our user is root, so we'll put the quotation marks because this is a string, and then the password here, that's where you put, but ours is empty, so we'll leave it open like that. Okay, so it's that simple. And now how do we run queries using PDO? Well, PDO query like this. It's that simple. So we have our database connected here already, if it works out. So all we need is to read from the table. However, if you didn't connect your database here, you can always connect using a query, and the query runs like this: use PDO, which is the name of the DB now. This is the query. Once you run this query, then it changes your database to whatever database you specify here. It's that simple. So this means that you can change databases between queries. So that is very possible. So if you specify here, that's okay. But even later, you can still change to another database and do a query. So it's very flexible. You can do that with MySQL as well, no problem. So here we'll run a query. So I just want to select everything. I'll say select all from users, like that. And then how do I fetch my data? I've run that query. It has brought some results, but how do I get my data? I'm just going to say fetch all. Take care of the capital letter there, like this. But I need to put the data somewhere, so I'll say data is equal to PDO fetch all, just like this. So let's try and run this and see to make sure that we have no errors. So navigate to localhost/PDO, and you don't need to type the index.php because Apache would automatically load it. So refresh, and then here it says uncaught error, code to undefined method PDO fetch all. So PDO fetch all does not exist. So this is my bad. I made a simple mistake here. I have to apply a connection here and just say, I'm just going to call this one result. You can call it anything. It's really just a variable here. Okay. So I will use result to fetch the result into data. So this can be a variable, it can be called A, it doesn't matter. So that should work now, and refresh. So you see we get nothing. It means no errors there. That is good news. And then all we need to do now is to display our data. So let's write some pre-tags here because I want my data to look readable, human readable. And then I'll say print readable, like this. I want to print readable the data that was returned. It's as simple as that. And I will refresh. You see it gives me an empty array there. Okay. So why is the array empty? Because there are no records in the users table. So if we come back here, you see there are no records here. So let's add some. Now to add records is very simple. We just need to provide a date, a password, an email, and a name. The ID is auto increment, it will add on its own. So that's name, email. So let's run a query before we run this one. Let's run another one. So to run a query that doesn't require a result to be returned, you just need this line by itself. So what I will do here is I'll just say name is equal to, so I'll give a name here, let's say Mary, and then an email, of course, and a date and a password. Okay, so password here. Now you may want to hash your password there, so the word password will be the password itself, but if you want to hash it and encrypt it, you can use a password hash underscore hash, like so. And then you put your password here, which is the word password itself, and then password default, like so. Okay, so this will be a hashed password, and let's add an email here. at gmail.com, like that. And then finally here we add a date. So let's create our own date here, and we just need to give it a format like year, month, day. We can put in hours, minutes, and seconds as well. So take care of the capitalization here. It's very important. It has significant meaning, and let's put that in a date format. So in order to create a query here is simple. We're just going to copy that. This is the read part, and this is the write part, like so. And I don't need to put this anywhere. I just need to send the query because I don't need to get any data from that. So here instead I'll say insert into users. That's how you insert, and then you put some column names there, then you put your values over here. So the column names are as follows: name, this should be email actually. So it's going to be name, email, you can put them in any order, date, password. The only thing that matters is this order should match the order on this other side. So you can start with any column and so on, it doesn't matter. So let me put these, reference the variables instead and put quotation marks. Always put quotes around your variables. Oops, what have I done? Let me use control left, right, like so. Okay. Now, if you can see it very well, what you can do is remove this from inside here and just set it to a variable called query and say query is equal to, like that. That way you can see it a little bit better, what's going on. And then you just put your query in here, like that. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're writing to the database, and then we want to read from it. We should have some data after that. So let's try this. I'll go here and refresh. Okay, so now as you can see, we have some data that has been returned. If I come back here and browse, click browse. Where is browse? Let me zoom out, refresh. You see that there's a record in here and the password is encrypted. There's a date, there's an email, and there's a name. So this is how you do things. This is how you read from the database. This is how you, read, sorry. And this is how you write to it. If you want to update the database, you do something like this. Let's see. Let me write a different record again, just to make them two. I'm going to convert Mary to John, like that, and leave everything else as it is. And then I will run this again. So refresh. Now we have two records in the database. Very good. Now let's say I want to edit John to Jose. Okay, so what will I do? I will do, this is not a write, this is an insert. And this is the read. So what I would do is I'll bury the insert for a second here, though the formula is the same. So I'll duplicate it and then just mute it, put comments there so that this doesn't run anymore. We want to run this and call it the, oh, wait a minute. Let me close this other one here just to keep things in order. And this one will be the update. So update, like that. So we're going to update and read from it. So what we say is update users, like this, and then you say set. So you set these items one by one. So you say set name is equal to, and let's set it to this name over here. Let's put the equal sign, just like this. And then you put a comma. You say email is equal to, password is equal to. That's how it goes. So let me just move these guys over here. So email, don't forget the inverted commas. And then let's move the date to there. And let's move the password to here. Okay, like this. So you say set, oh, not equals there. So update users, set name is equal to that, email is equal to that, and so on. But we just want to update the name, so we don't need these others. We're not updating the email nor the date. So just the name, but this is how you would do it if there were many of them. So let me remove all this. We just want to change set name is equal to the variable, whatever is in the variable name, and then you have to tell it which record to update. So we'll say where, and we're going to use the ID, which is the primary key. So update this where the ID is equal to, this is the one, the ID is 2 in the database. So let's come back here and say ID is equal to 2, like that. Now it's good practice, if you know that you're going to update only one record, to just say limit 1. That way it exits the moment it edits one column or one row, because it's possible that there could be 3 or 4 rows that have the same ID 2. So if that's the case, it will update all of them. But if you want to just limit it to one row, you can say limit 1. Or you can remove it if you wanted to edit all of them that have the same where clause here. So once we do this, name is there. So let's add something to name, which goes as Jose. And also let's actually adjust the email as well to match the name, Jose. So where name is equal to name, and let's just add it real quick. Email is equal to email, like that. Okay. Good. So let's go back here and let's refresh the page. So as you see now, once I've refreshed the page, John is now Jose at joseemail.com, just like that. Now, if you notice here, it's returning the same record twice. So you see the ID is here as a 0, the name is here as a 1, the email is here again as a 2. So this is wasteful because you use too much memory when loading things like this. It's just giving you the normal array version and the normal associative array version. So to limit that to a specific result, let me mute both the update and the insert. I'll just remain with the reading part. So to limit that, what you do is when you're reading here, when you say fetch all, just tell it how to fetch the data. So you say PDO double colon like this, and then you say fetch like that, and then underscore. Now you can tell it to fetch only the associative array by saying assoc, or you can tell it to say to give you objects with obj like that. So let's try assoc like so, and you will see that the data will be reduced in half. Okay, so there we are, half the data. It says array, but if I change this to obj, it's going to return objects now. So let me come back here and refresh, and now these are objects. Okay, but with the same data. So as you can see, it's really easy to connect to MySQL using PDO. It makes things very easy to do. Hopefully you have learned something new, and I will see you in the next video.